Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Astotar to the Sri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Parudikacharya Astotar to the Sri Srimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Well, I think I can tell we're missing Govardhan because I don't have a Bhagavad Gita. And there's a special Bhagavad Gita, that this one right here actually, because it's got the marker. I got it here, Daniel. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. On this 4th day of October 2021 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 15 entitled The Yoga of the Supreme Person. Text number 12 on page 604. Yad Adityagatam Tejo Jagad Vasayate Akilam Yat Chandramasi Yat Chagnau Tat Tejo Vidhimamakam Yadaditikatam Tejo Jagadbhasiyate Kilam Yat Chandramasi Yat Chagnau Tat Tejo Vidhimamakam Yadaditikatam Tejo. Oh, I'm sorry, you got this one Bhagavad Gita has a different pagination. We have to, she's got the right one now. It's okay. Page 604. Yadaditikatam Tejo Jagadbhasiyate Kilam Yat chandramasi yat chagnau tat tejo vidimamakam. 604, Ravi. 604. Yadadityakatam tejo jagadbhasayate kilam yat chandramasi yat chagnau tat tejo vidimamakam. Go ahead, Ravi. Yadadityakatam tejo jagadbhasayate kilam yat chandramasi yat chagnau tat tejo vidimamakam. Yadadityakatam tejo jagadbhasayate kilam yat chandramasi yat chagnau tejo vidimamakam. Tyler. Yadadityakatam tejo jagadbhasayate kilam yat chandramasi yat chagnau tat tejo vidimamakam. Vaishnavis. Yadadityakatam tejo jagadbhasayate kilam yat chandramasi yat chagnau tat tejo vidimamakam. All right, I'll read through the synonyms. Yat, that which, adityakatam, in the sunshine, adityakatam, in the sunshine, tejaha, splendor, jagat, the whole world, bhasyate, illuminates. Akilam, entirely. Yat, that which, chandramasi, in the moon. Yat, that which, cha, also, agnau, in fire. Tat, that, tejaha, splendor, vidhi, understand, mamakam, from me. Translation. Krishna says, the splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. Purport. The unintelligent cannot understand how things are taking place, but one can begin to be established in knowledge by understanding what the Lord explains here. Everyone sees the sun, moon, fire, and electricity. One should simply try to understand that the splendor of the sun, the splendor of the moon, and the splendor of electricity or fire are coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In such a conception of life, the beginning of Krishna consciousness, lies a great deal of advancement for the conditioned soul in this material world. The living entities are essentially the parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, and He is giving herewith the hint how they can come back to Godhead, back to home. Page 604, Prabhu. Bottom of the page. From this verse, we can understand that the sun is illuminating the whole universe. There are different universes, and there are different suns, moons, and planets also. But in each universe, there is only one sun. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 10:21, the moon is one of the stars, nakshatranam ahang shashi. Sunlight is due to the spiritual effulgence in the spiritual sky of the Supreme Lord. With the rise of the sun, the activities of human beings are set up. They set fire to prepare their foodstuff, they set fire to start the factories, etc. So many things are done with the help of fire. Therefore, sunrise, fire, and moonlight are so pleasing to the living entities. Without their help, no living entity can live. So if one can understand that the light and splendor of the sun, moon, and fire are emanating from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, then one's Krishna consciousness will begin. By the moonshine, all the vegetables are nourished. The moonshine is so pleasing that people can easily understand that they are living by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Without His mercy, there cannot be sun. Without His mercy, there cannot be moon. And without His mercy, there cannot be fire. And without the help of sun, moon, and fire, no one can live. These are some thoughts to provoke Krishna consciousness in the conditioned soul. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandjana salakaya Chakshu unmilitam mena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. Can we close just that one door? Thanks. Is this running? These fans? They're on, right? Okay. Thanks. So, if we recall the title of the chapter, the Yoga of the Supreme Person, Purushottama Yoga. Every chapter officially has the name Yoga attached to it. So Purushottama means the Supreme Person. And so far, Krishna has, interestingly enough, in the beginning, you remember there was that analogy of the upside-down banyan tree, which is compared to this whole material world. Now, why is it upside down? Who can remember? Govardhan. It's a reflection. It's a reflection of the real world, the spiritual world. So this is probably a little perverted reflection. And we're trapped in it, life after life. We go from branch to branch. We try to make adjustments here and there. But what's the key to getting free from this entanglement of this tree? Who remembers? Right. And then what do? Then you have to search out. No, the root is desire. You have to search out that person from whom everything has come since time immemorial and surrender. And there's a whole verse on how to surrender. So now Krishna says, as he often does, he talks about that person in the third person. He doesn't say I have to surrender to me. Right? If we go to the verse, it's verse 4. Tatak padam tat parimagitavyam. Thereafter one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and from whom everything is extended. That's me. Why is he speaking in the third person? He does this all the time, you know. And now he comes out of that when he says, "Mamai Vangsho Jiva Loke," in the text 7. Now he's in that everyone is part and parcel of me. The living entities in the world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they're struggling very hard with senses, which include the mind. So now he's in the first person. And now he's going to, then he describes transmigration of the soul in several verses. And now he's coming to the point where he's going to describe himself as the source of the fire and the sun and the moon and all these things. So clearly he's come back to describe himself. And that will continue to the rest of the chapter. It's a short chapter, it's only 20 verses. So now he's describing himself in terms of the different energies that we need in order to live in this world. The sun, the moon, fire, they're all essential. And he's saying all of this comes from me. Mamakam, tattejo vidi mamakam. That is actually my splendor. It's coming from me. All the illumination that we see actually begins with Krishna. The Brahma Jyoti is the effulgence of his body. Who knows the verse from Brahma Samhita? Yasya prabha pabhavato jagadanda koti koti shvishesha vasadadi vibhuti bhinnam. Yasya means his. Refers to Govinda, who's always the theme, right? Govindam adi purusham tam. I worship a Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose effulgence is this, prabha means effulgence, is all pervading, and it's been, there's also a way in which the Brahman effulgence helps to create all of the planets, everything like that. So, this is the yoga of the Supreme Person, and at the end, after he's describing all these things, he's going to say, one who knows that I am that Supreme Person, he achieves perfection in life. So the whole idea of this chapter, and we're going to come across the one of the most important verses. We may get to it tonight. Text 15. This is the one that's most quoted in this chapter, describing how Krishna is in everyone's heart. Okay, any questions on text 12? Yes.
My question was, it says here on page 605. Oh, thank you, Dravida Prabhu, by the way. There are different universes and there are different suns, moons, planets also, but in each universe there is only one sun. What does it mean there's only one sun in each universe?
This is part of the amazing cosmology that you learn in, it doesn't always it rarely corresponds with what we learned in 5th grade or whatever. We started learning about that. This came up in chapter 10. Prabhupada refers it to here, I think. Or that nakshatranam aham shashi. Nakshatranam aham shashi. In chapter 10, if you recall, Krishna is giving his vibhutis. He's giving some example of how his wonderful manifestations of this world are all part of his glories. Vibhuti means power. So he says, nakshatranam aham shashi. Nakshatranam can mean different things, but it also means stars, and that's how Prabhupada translates it there. Of stars, I am the shashi. Now this is pretty esoteric. Why would the moon be called a shashi? First of all, you got to know what shashi means. Rabbit. Rabbit. Because if you look in the moon, you can see a deer or you can see a rabbit. There's a way of there's a so they see a moon. So shashi is a word for rabbit is a word for moon. So anyway, of stars, I am the moon. And then Prabhupada explains in this, let's go to that purport. I think it's 1020. 1021, is it? Okay. Yes, right you are. Now, you notice that second paragraph? Prabhupada explains. Among the stars, the moon is the most prominent at night. All right? Now, right away, we've got moon as a star. Well, that's what it is. Among the stars, the moon is the most prominent at night, and thus the moon represents Krishna. It appears from this verse that the moon is one of the stars. Therefore, the stars that twinkle in the sky also reflect the light of the sun. The theory that there are many suns within the universe is not accepted by Vedic literature. The sun is one, and as by the reflection of the sun the moon illuminates, so also do the stars. Since the Bhagavad Gita indicates herein that the moon is one of the stars, the twinkling stars are not suns, but are similar to the moon. Now there's a faith breaker right there, right? I learned in 3rd grade that there's like so many different solar systems, and then we have one sun, and then... So our first editor, this was 1972, he edited the book in 70, 71, and the book was published in 72. This was the first edition of the unabridged Gita, which Prabhupada loved. There's a wonderful picture of him getting the advanced copy and holding it to his head and smiling very broadly. But the editing was a little weaker then because they didn't know so much, and they took more liberties than they should have. So this editor, he just X'd out this paragraph. You won't find it in the book because he felt nobody will believe that, and people will be reading along and no one will come to the Hare Krishna movement. But you can't do that. Somehow or other, this is true, and we don't. There's so many mysteries. The existence of the soul itself is a mystery, and how the creation takes place, from subtle to gross. It's an amazing story in the 3rd canto, which we read a few months ago. So, in the 1983, about 10 years later, the book was revised. If you look at the beginning, you'll see this is the 2nd edition, the revised edition, because so many restorations like that were made. So Prabhupada is referring to that in this verse we just read. Here it is, 1021. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 10, the moon is one of the stars, nakshatranam aham shashi. And so that means all those stars are moons. If the moon is a star, the stars are moons, and therefore they're also reflecting the light of the one sun that we have. And that's just the way it is. One day when we get more advanced, we'll understand it.
We can also kind of see this with the planets that are in our solar system because they also reflect the sunlight, and that's how we can see. We see them as stars, but they're actually planets as well.
Yeah. System is the only sun that's in the entire universe, or is there a greater sun that's in the universe that our solar system sun is reflecting?
The solar system idea is a Western one.
Okay.
In fact, that's another thing that you'll find that there, several times in this book, in the old version, in Macmillan edition, you'll find the phrase solar system. rather than universe.
That's what I saw. It's different when I'm in my copy. than
Yeah,
when you read
because
it.
you're reading the old one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's different page number, and it says that. And I was wondering, why was it edited? So it's actually a prescient
Should be
question. that he
universe. It should be universe.
So,
Yeah.
but is the sun that we see as our sun the sun? Or
That's
is
it. That's
wow.
the sun.
So that puts us in the center of things,
Yes,
not
we're
a
very
distant
close.
solar system in the very big galaxy, even in what to speak of the universe. We're supposed to be in a distant arm of the Milky Way galaxy, which is one of many galaxies within this whole universe. But we're saying that the sun that we see right there is the sun?
You'll understand that one day, Tyler.
Yeah. That puts us much more in focus then, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
We're very fortunate.
Jai.
And so what's really fortunate is that once in over 8 billion years, Krishna appears on this planet, and he manifests a replica of the spiritual world in Vrindavan, right? You know that's only 5,000 years ago, right? And after that, Lord Chaitanya, he appears as Lord Chaitanya in the Kali Yuga of that 4 Yuga series. So here we are, just 5,000 years after Krishna appeared, 500 and a few, 40 years after Lord Chaitanya appeared. How rare is that? 1 out of 8 billion, much more rare than winning the lottery. Yeah, so we should cash in those chips or that ticket, having appeared, having out of all the people in the world, there's billions and billions, there's maybe a few 100,000 who are seriously practicing Gaudiya Vaishnavism. I mean, there's more in India. There's a few million, but it's practically minuscule. And so we have a great chance to go back to Godhead. All right, let's go on. Text 13. Gama vishya cha bhutani dharayamyaham pushnami chaushadhi sarva somo bhutva rasatmakaha. I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. Purport. It is understood that all the planets are floating in the air only by the energy of the Lord. The Lord enters into every atom, every planet, and every living being. Thus, that is discussed in the Brahma Samhita. It is said there that one plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Paramatma, enters into the planets, the universe, the living entity, and even into the atom. So due to his entrance, everything is appropriately manifested. When the spirit soul is there, a living man can float on the water. But when the living spark is out of the body and the body is dead, the body sinks. Of course, when it is decomposed, it floats just like a straw and other things. But as soon as the man is dead, he at once sinks in the water. Similarly, all these planets are floating in space, and this is due to the entrance of the supreme energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His energy is sustaining each planet, just like a handful of dust. If someone holds a handful of dust, there is no possibility of the dust falling. But if one throws it in the air, it will fall down. Similarly, these planets, which are floating in the air, are actually held in the fist of the universal form of the Supreme Lord. By his strength and energy, all moving and non-moving things stay in their place. It is said in the Vedic hymns that because of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sun is shining and the planets are steadily moving. Were it not for him, all the planets would scatter like dust in the air and perish. Similarly, it is due to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that the moon nourishes all vegetables. Due to the moon's influence, the vegetables become delicious. Without the moonshine, the vegetables can neither grow nor taste succulent. Human society is working, living comfortably, and enjoying food due to the supply from the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, mankind could not survive. The word rasatmakaha is very significant. Everything becomes palatable by the agency of the Supreme Lord through the influence of the moon. So one of the things that this part of the Bhagavad Gita is dealing with is how we can see God in nature. That's come up before. Remember, it's starting in the 7th chapter, where he's talked about the different energies, bhumarapa, onalavayo, kangmanu, that there's earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. These are my inferior energies, and there's a superior energy. And we can start to be Krishna conscious by seeing how Krishna is working through his energies in this world. He said, Rasoham apsakonte, I am the taste of water, I have the light of the sun and the moon. Sounds familiar? We're getting an echo of this here. I am the fragrance, the original fragrance of the earth, the strength of the strong, all of these different things. So we perceive these in our daily life, many of these things going on. So the idea is that if we see our world through the words of the Bhagavad Gita, or called Shastra Chakshus, the eyes of Shastra, then we can begin to see God everywhere. Our whole consciousness becomes divine, because at every moment we're experiencing some of these things. But because we're conditioned, we want to try to exploit this world for ourselves, we have to forget Krishna, in order to think that we're independent enjoyers. And that's called Maya, or illusion. So Krishna is weaning us away from Maya by explaining how he's there in everything. And in a few minutes, in a few verses, he's going to explain how he's in everyone's heart and how that's functioning. That he's giving us remembrance, he's giving us forgetfulness, he's giving us knowledge. And so if we remember these verses, and we try to use the energy that's been given to us, in our little sphere of influence over this material world, by connecting it to Krishna through devotional service, then we're well on our way to becoming Krishna conscious. It's that forgetfulness of Krishna, and that the energy we're getting is coming from him, is that constitutes our Maya. Now, one thing Prabhupada points out, and it would be good to refer to that here, because Krishna is talking about the sun, he's talking about the moonshine and how it's so important for our sustenance. So just by living in this world, we become debtors. There's a verse in the Bhagavatam describing that, how we can liquidate that debt. Devarshi bhutapta nrinam patrinam nakin karo nayam nrini charajan sarvatmanayak sharanam sharanyam gato mukundam paridityakartam. So Deva, to the Devas, to the Rishis, we owe so much to the Devas. Isn't that what the whole Govardhan Leela is about? Is that the residents of Vrindavan were dutifully paying their tax by performing the Indra Yajna every year, right? Recognizing how Indra is so important. He's sending the rain at the right time, not too much, not too little, right? So they owe him, and they're performing. And Krishna comes and he disrupts. He stops the sacrifice, right? Now he does many different things at once. This is why one of the qualities of Krishna is the genius. He can do a bunch of things at once. So the first thing he's doing is saying, you don't have to worship any demigods. Demigod worship is distraction from worshiping him. So, but he doesn't want to reveal that he's the supreme person. So we'll worship Govardhan Hill, right? And then he revealed that I'm the hill, and then there's a whole thing that goes on. So but the main thing is they're giving up in Indra Yajna. And you know what happens? Indra, as he often does, he flies off the handle. He loses it, and he wants to punish the residents of Vrindavan. I mean, a little bit overdoes it. He's going to annihilate them. If they proceeded without any interference from Krishna, they would have drowned all those cows and the residents. So luckily, Krishna stopped. He protected. But the point is that in the ordinary course of events, we owe the rishis. Rishis means wise people, teachers. We're taught from childhood, right? So many different things. So we owe the sun god, we owe the moon god, we owe the water god for supplying the necessities of life, right? Devashi Buddhan Vinam Patrinam, the forefathers, just other living beings in general, other human beings and other animals and other rural society. So if we don't recognize that debt and try to propitiate the demigods and do all these things or somehow pay, then we become sinners and we suffer. But there's a way of liquidating all the debts, just like you can consolidate all your credit cards, right, into one payment a month, right? So that one payment a month is bhakti to Krishna, because all of the demigods, they're all giving what they give because Krishna is allowing them. He's providing what they give. It's actually coming from Krishna. So if you're dedicating your life to the service of Krishna, then all of debts are liquidated. It's very sarvatmana sharanam sharanyam, means with your full being you take shelter of he who is meant to be taken shelter of. Gato mukundam paridityakartam. Then you've given up your agency, that I'm an independent doer. You are in the employ of Krishna. If you want to, I don't have anything of my own. I recognize Krishna owns everything. If you want to liquidate that, go to him. So, oh no, he's our boss. You see how it works? So all the Indra and all the other gods, they back off. So otherwise you remain, criminal. And so we don't want to do that. So therefore, that's another benefit we don't often recognize of being devotees of Krishna. There's a whole arrangement that's behind the scenes that we don't recognize, but it's happening. All right, any questions, local or remote? Local.
It's a simple question. I'd like to know what ether means.
Ether?
Ether, yeah, sorry.
Think of ether as space, the space that everything else is going on in. It's a very subtle element, and it accommodates all the other things that are going on. So it's these elements are progressively more subtle, obviously. And after ether, what do you have? Mind. What is mind? Where is the mind? And then even intelligence is even more, and the soul is even more subtle than that. Mind, intelligence, ego, the sense of self. So it's very fascinating, the study. I don't know if you were here when we did the third canto. That was a while back. But at the end of the third canto, you have the teachings of Lord Kapila Dev. And in those teachings, he has understanding material nature, how things come to be from subtle to gross. It's fascinating. It all begins with sound. And sound manifests as the ether, and then we have to have the ear to hear it, and then it goes down from there, And the Krishna consciousness dissolves the whole thing through sound. We're trying to get out of all of this complicated material entrapment, and it can be done through transcendental sound. Hare Krishna. All right, let's go on. We could reach 15 tonight, which would be great. Aham Vaishvanaro Bhutva Praninam Dehimashitaha Pranapana Samayukta Pachamyannam Chaturvidham. I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the air of life, outgoing and incoming, to digest the 4 kinds of foodstuff. Purport. According to Ayurvedic Shastra, we understand that there is a fire in the stomach which digests all food sent there. When the fire is not blazing, there is no hunger, and when the fire is in order, we become hungry. Sometimes, when the fire is not going nicely, treatment is required. In any case, this fire is representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vedic mantras, Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 591, also confirm that the Supreme Lord, or Brahman, is situated in the form of fire within the stomach and is digesting all kinds of foodstuff. Ayam Agni Vaishvanaro Yo Yamanta Purushe Yenedam Annam Pachyate. Therefore, since he is helping the digestion of all kinds of foodstuff, the living entity is not independent in the eating process. Unless the Supreme Lord helps him in digesting, there is no possibility of eating. He thus produces and digests foodstuff, and by his grace we are enjoying life. In the Vedanta Sutra 1.2.27, this is also confirmed. Shabda dibhyontak patishtanat cha. The Lord is situated within sound and within the body, within the air, and even within the stomach as the digestive force. There are 4 kinds of foodstuff. Some are drunk, some are chewed, some are licked up, and some are sucked. And he is the digestive force for all of them. Now this is a good time to bring up this verse, which is one of the first verses I ever learned. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam eko bahunam yobadadati kaman. I forget which, I think it's Svedashtra Upanishad. So it says, of all the eternal conscious living beings, we're examples of them, all living entities. They're countless. Nityo, Nityanam. So Nitya is singular, Nityanam is plural. Nityo, Nityanam, Chaitanas, Chaitananam. So you have an infinite number of conscious, eternal living beings. There's one eko bahunam yovedadhati kaman, who provides and the necessities of all the others. And that one is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He himself is independent, and he's the source of all the things that we need, all of our necessities. You see, and part of Maya is forgetting where our necessities are coming from, and trying to exploit nature independently. And we can see what a mess we made of it. You know, this climate change means that all of the heating of the earth and the mass slaughter of animals and madness. Do you know? I mean, I didn't. I just that there's an island, floating island of plastic out in the Pacific Ocean. It's at least twice as big as Texas. You know, all those plastic bags and all the other plastic that eventually makes its way into the sea, and a disaster. And what happens is, the poor fish, you know, that stuff dissolves, it becomes very tiny little particles, and they eat it, and they think they're eating something, but it's just filling them up, and there's no nourishment. They die, or they feed it to their little baby fish, you know. All because of the human beings. Yeah. Everybody's a star.
I'm just going to go back a little bit. So you said just a minute ago, Krishna is the source of all necessities for the other beings.
Yeah,
is he not also the source of all things that aren't necessities?
Yes, he is. And those things are happen to us. You know, things that are negative. There's things that we don't want that happen, because the whole arrangement of the material world is there for two reasons. One is to provide us with a field in which we can try to be little gods, you know, enjoyers and controllers. And then, with the right knowledge that's available, it's not always available, but you learn your lesson. This is not working. I can't be happy and independent and peaceful in this world. So that's the reason for this. So this setup, this material world, it's like everything is changing, but we're not changing. We're eternal. We're trying to find that place of happiness and security in a place that's inherently unhappy and insecure. It's just the way it is, just by the time passing. So yes, Krishna has created the things that also cause us distress, because otherwise we'd be in the spiritual world. But we're in an artificial situation. You know, all it's changing, being in a material body when we're perfectly spiritual. It's like an incompatible situation. We are purely spiritual, we live forever, we're full of bliss, but we're in a body that's temporary, full of ignorance and all of these different things. And so yes, that's also created for us. But in order for us to live and learn, get to the human form, all these necessities have to be provided as well. You see what I'm saying? It's like a big reformatory. It's like where someone goes to get off drugs or something. We're all addicted to various sense gratifications. So we need that rehab. Just like they build hospitals or,
Okay, so I get that, but using your analogy, why have drugs that are addictive to just teach us a lesson to stay away and don't become addicted? Why not just not have them? Why not have them not even exist?
Well, for a long time we didn't have them.
Certain drugs have no positive value, right?
Yeah, the thing is we'll find something to be addicted. I mean, for a lot of these artificial drugs didn't exist for a long time. They exist now. Now they're available. Because demonically, we manipulate the material energy, and out of all of the chemicals we create, some of them, can affect the brain in a certain way, and then you get a certain buzz. Okay, that's great. Now let's sell it. And so you have this whole alcohol, industry. I mean, it's just part of the way the material energy, the varieties of things that are there, and we need to learn the lesson that we shouldn't go there. In other words, this is not the way that we can be wholesome, and therefore we have these addictive things so that we can have four regulative principles, and surrender by giving up that temptation and moving toward Krishna. It's just the way the world is created. You know, that was the strategy. It doesn't seem to make sense. Well, why not just create a nice place where those who want to be independent can also be happy? But it's an artificial situation. It's like, how can you be happy when you're completely in an alien environment? We're spiritual. This world is material. We're not meant to be here, but we're meant to learn from our experiences how we can return to our home. That's the setup.
So these let's say just in general, these negative, unnecessary things are there as a way to teach us the way back home.
Yes.
They're useful because they show us what not to do.
And our role, you know, if we even know a little bit about this, is to live according to the teachings, even though it may be some troublesome, especially at the beginning, and to give that knowledge to others. We're meant to be agents, as imperfect as we are, to help others also see the light, because there's absolutely no way that you can have a peaceful, happy, materialistic society devoid of God consciousness, Krishna consciousness. It can't happen, and we see it all around us. How, you know, people are trying like crazy to try to stop the climate change, but as long as you have these demonic demons, you know, who are running things, whose only purpose in life is to get as much for themselves as possible, you know, and to heck with the future generations and everything. Their own grandchildren they don't care about. Yeah, you know. Then that's the you know, the battle that we're in. There's the light here. We're just agents, but the light that Prabhupada has given can actually cool out that passion, and that's why someone, you know, don't surrender to lust, anger, and greed. These are the 3 gates leading to hell, right in the 16th chapter, next chapter. So that's what everyone is boiling over with. Lust, anger, and greed, especially anger. There's so much anger, you know. So we know the solution to it, and we should give it. You have an answer or a question. I think you have.
Also, the option not to serve Krishna has to be there for love to exist, because love is voluntary. So these negative things, they have to be there, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's all part of the material world. The world, you know, that is devoid of Krishna's presence or consciousness of Krishna, and the things that, you know, happen that can get so horrific, we see just in our, you know, in history and in our own lives, is part of the setup when the modes of, you know, passionate ignorance become so predominant, and people are in a mad state. We're just reading in the morning, Nunam pramatta kurate vikarma yadindriya pitaya pranodi. This is Rishabdev. He says, certainly, Nuna means certainly, pramatta means mad, and not just mad, but very mad, totally mad, pramatta. Those who act simply on the basis of sense gratification. Well, we're surrounded by billions of people who are doing that. So he says, because it's sure to lead to another birth, it's sure to lead of suffering. You want like anything to enjoy, have a peaceful life, but you get just the opposite if you're simply trying to fulfill your own lusty desires in all the varieties that it comes in. So what's the solution? Bhakti, Krishna consciousness, purity, you know, working to purify the heart of these tendencies to ignore Krishna and try to enjoy matter. And that's what Krishna is teaching us here. All right, let's read this next verse, because this is the key verse here. Sarvasya chaham mridisannivishto mattaksmati jnanam apohanam cha vedaishcha sarvar ahameva vedyo vedanta kridin veda vedeva chaham. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Purport. The Supreme Lord is situated as the Paramatma in everyone's heart, and it is from him that all activities are initiated. The living entity forgets everything of his past life, but he has to act according to the direction of the Supreme Lord, who is a witness to all his work. Therefore, he, the soul, begins his work according to his past deeds. Required knowledge is supplied to him, and remembrance is given to him, and he forgets also about his past life. Thus the Lord is not only all-pervading, he is also localized in every individual heart. He awards the different fruit of results. He is worshipable not only as the impersonal Brahman, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the localized Paramatma, but as the form of the incarnation of the Vedas as well. The Vedas give the right direction to people so that they can properly mold their lives and come back to Godhead, back to home. The Vedas offer knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and Krishna in his incarnation as Vyasadeva excuse me, is the compiler of the Vedanta Sutra. The commentation on the Vedanta Sutra by Vyasadeva in the Srimad Bhagavatam gives the real understanding of Vedanta Sutra. The Supreme Lord is so full that for the deliverance of the conditioned soul, he is the supplier and digester of foodstuff, the witness of his activity, and the giver of knowledge in the form of the Vedas and as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, the teacher of the Bhagavad Gita. He is worshipable by the conditioned soul. Thus God is all good, God is all merciful. Antak Pravishta Shasta Jananam. The living entity forgets as soon as he quits his present body, but he begins his work again, initiated by the Supreme Lord. Although he forgets, the Lord gives him the intelligence to renew his work where he ended his last life. So not only does the living entity enjoy or suffer in this world according to the dictation from the Supreme Lord situated locally in the heart, but he receives the opportunity to understand the Vedas from him. If one is serious about understanding the Vedic knowledge, then Krishna gives the required intelligence. Why does he present the Vedic knowledge for us understanding? Because a living entity individually needs to understand Krishna. Vedic literature confirms this. Yo sao sarvar vedar giyate. In all Vedic literature, beginning from the four Vedas, Vedanta Sutra, and the Upanishads and Puranas, the glories of the Supreme Lord are celebrated. By performance of Vedic rituals, discussion of the Vedic philosophy, and worship of the Lord in devotional service, he is attained. Therefore, the purpose of the Vedas is to understand Krishna. The Vedas give us direction by which to understand Krishna and the process of realizing him. The ultimate goal is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vedanta Sutra 114 confirms this in the following words. Tat tu samanvayat. One can attain perfection in 3 stages. By understanding Vedic literature, one can understand his relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. By performing the different processes, one can approach him. And at the end, one can attain the supreme goal, who is none other than the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this verse, the purpose of the Vedas, the understanding of the Vedas, and the goal of the Vedas are clearly defined. So, this is a classic verse Prabhupada quotes all the time. And it reminds me of another verse and purport, which is quite amazing. Maybe I'll bring that. I didn't prepare it. But at the end of the 2nd chapter or 3rd chapter of the 2nd canto, there's a verse describing how one can, by a little use of the intelligence, you can intuit the presence of the Supersoul in your own heart. And what he describes there is that Krishna is acting kind of like a guide for our intelligence. When you try to remember something, what are you actually doing? It's almost like a prayer. You know, now where did I leave those keys, right? And then said, oh, now I remember. And that's the super soul giving you that blessing of remembrance, you know. And when you try to remember and you can't remember, you're getting punished for something, you know. Can't remember. So, but Krishna is responsive. We learned in the 13th chapter. Upadrashta anumantachar bhata bhokta maheshwara. This is the description of the super soul. Upadrashta means literally overseeing. He's watching us, everything we're doing, and keeping a record, infallible record. You know that it's never, the hard drive never gets, you know, crashes. He always remembers everything that we did. He says in the 7th chapter, I remember everything that happened in the past, everything that's going on now, and everything that's going to happen in the future. That's omniscience. So if you think about it, to be omniscient, truly omniscient, you have to be omnipresent also, and that's the super soul. He's present in every heart, he's present in every atom, right? That's omniscience, omnipresence. So I'm there in everyone's heart, and I give the remembrance, I give knowledge, and I give forgetfulness. Now this forgetfulness is a real blessing, actually, when you think about it. You come into this world and you have a past, so many lives, and you don't want to remember everything there. So many, diseases, deaths. It's horrible. And Krishna is so kind, he lets us forget all of that. But still, he's fulfilling our previous desires and fulfilling our karma, good and bad. Guiding us to go here, guiding us to go there. There's no accidents. So what happens when we take a little turn toward him? Right? We get a book, or we get curious about Krishna consciousness, or we have some prasadam, or we meet somebody, somehow or other, Krishna enters into our lives by the mercy of the Vaishnavas, a great Vaishnava like Srila Prabhupada and his representative. So now there's that factor in all of the nonsense that we've been doing and not forgetting Krishna. There's also that element of remembering Krishna, of showing a little bit of interest. Now the super soul wants to try to, work with that, you see. So, but we're so covered over, we can't perceive the super soul directly. So therefore he comes outside as the guru or gurus, and he comes as the Shastra, genuine Shastra. Prabhupada made that clear. To give us explicit instruction. Now we may still be so bullheaded that we don't take it, that happens a lot. But at least if we begin, that's to our eternal credit. Remember, way back in chapter 2, one of the most encouraging verses in the whole Gita, Neha bhikramanasosti pratyavayo navidyate svopamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayat. In this endeavor of Krishna consciousness, there's no loss and, notice the pronunciation, diminution. There's no diminution, meaning it never decreases. Just opposite to anything you build materially. You could be a billionaire, you could be a millionaire, you can have a huge family, you can have a big degrees, whatever it is, it's all gone. When you leave this body, your money all stays in the bank, people get it, but you can't take it with you, right? So what was the point? All that effort to create some situation in this life that you can enjoy, and it's gone. But your spiritual asset remains. You said Hare Krishna one time, that goes in the book, I take this walk and I say Hare Krishna to people, and I get some Hare Krishnas back. It's so gratifying, I know that that's in their bank account, and just wearing the clothes, that's probably one of the so people would recognize, They would think, oh, there goes a Hare Krishna. Whoa, I mean, you have to read the Shastra, right in the Bhagavatam. It says, it's not even one's chanting, one's hearing the holy name. In the 6th canto, there's a whole story of Chitraketu, and in his prayers, so he gets the vision of Sankrishan, and then he has these prayers, and it's mentioned there that the holy name is so powerful that just one's hearing it, and you get rid of so much bad karma. We're carrying this whole history with us, we don't even know, and gradually it's playing out, but it can be changed by Krishna and Krishna alone. So we always have to remember, at the beginning of the previous chapter, Krishna says, Aham bija pradakpita. I am the father of every living entity. They're all his praja. He injects us into this material energy, and we take birth in all the various species and all this thing, and take up our karma when the universe begins, all this going on. But he's the father. And being the father, he doesn't abandon us. He's always with us as Super Soul. And he's making arrangements for us to come back if we at all want to, we should want to. So that's part of that arrangement is what we're doing right here. This class, this books, the holy name, we got the bead bags, This is all ways in which he's reaching out to attract us back through the intelligence as well as, dancing and chanting. Prasadam is very important. All as with beautiful smiling deities. This is all Krishna inviting us back. Haven't you suffered enough? Come on, chant Hare Krishna and dance, see? And then when you get tired, take prasadam. So, so Krishna is everywhere, he's in our hearts, and he's our ever well wisher. This is why people, freak out when the government wants to increase its surveillance. Right? When that guy, I always forget his name, he said, yeah, the NSA, they're listening in on every phone call and on all the emails. What? They know I said this to that person and this to that person. Because we don't think that they have our best interests at heart. They want to try to exploit us or, blackmail us or whatever, We don't trust Krishna, the super soul. Yes, he knows everything, but he has our best interests at heart. He has nothing to gain himself from all of this. He's simply trying to somehow attract us back to the spiritual world. So that's what this is all about. And all Vedanta Krit Veda Videvacham. From all the Vedas, I am to be known. Now, there's some Vedas that don't seem to deal with, Krishna, the Ayurveda, the Jyotish, all these different things. But it sets the stage for the Bhagavatam ultimately. Okay, sorry, we ran out of time. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol. Sarvashijaham